Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. It's 7:08 p.m. Central, just 7:09 p.m. Just changed. We're all still alive. Look at Jay up there. Jay McNicholas is back. Good job. He's
Head is
moving,
beaming.
going through a moving apocalypse. And
Yeah,
those can be something. Let me tell you, I've been through
it's
it for
not
sure.
fun. I haven't even started moving yet, and it's not fun.
Yep, it definitely can be a stressor for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted my picture. I don't know. I posted pictures of this white dragonfly I saw outside, and
You know,
I've never seen a white dragonfly. I didn't know. I mean, I'm sure I figured maybe they existed. I just never thought about it. But its body's white, and it has like black wings, and it was like seemed like it knew I was watching it and like posing almost, and then fly away and come back and like right in front of me. And I took pictures. Of course, I thought of my dog Jack for some reason because he was black and white, who passed not too long ago. But I posted them on my Facebook. It was just weird. I don't know. Have you ever seen a white dragonfly? The body's white.
I wonder
No.
if it's like a white buffalo. It's a mystical sign.
It's weird. I have an animal book someone sent me about pets afterlife stuff, and it said white dragonflies. It means that there's a connection, a divine connection in heaven with your dog. Which who knows? It's one of those books, but it's comforting. But you're like, okay, but
Yeah.
it was, but not bad. But let me tonight's guest, Teel James Glenn. Stuntman, actor, fight choreographer, and novelist. Man, your rap sheet, there's so many different things to talk about. It's just long, and you have so many interesting things from the Renaissance stuff. It's just everlasting. Toxie's double, Citizen Toxie.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were in that movie, or is that like, is that?
When it was Toxic Avenger and the Noxious Offender, and so whenever the camera had the two of them, I was always the one with the back of the head to the camera. So
Okay.
whenever he fought his evil double, I was either the double or I was him. So I would go back and forth. I'm the one who gets thrown over the front of the truck. I was the stunt double on it and fight choreographer.
That's cool. Toxic Avenger stunt double. You can't get any cooler
It's a
than
great
that. That's
movie.
cool. When I saw that movie when I was a kid, it traumatized me. And I know, and now it's kind of like it probably wouldn't do anything to me, but it was that episode where they ran over that kid's head with the car
Yeah,
or something like
Yep.
that, and it just
That
always
was
messed
awesome.
with me.
Yeah, no, it's some pretty gross stuff. Well, they're doing a movie now with Peter Dinklage. They're doing the musical, like a big budget, giant movie of this clumpy, cheap, low budget movie that kept spawning sequels like an evil fungus.
Yeah, is the one with Peter Dinklage going to be a musical, or is it going to be a regular kind of
I
movie?
think they're doing the musical because the musical was very successful like a decade ago. That's a stage musical. So I think that's what they're doing. But who knows? I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, why are you making a toilet out of solid gold? They're taking this thing which is like its charm is that it's low budget, and now it's going to be this giant big budget thing. It's like when they did that Saturday morning show with the Five Rangers, and then they did
Power Rangers.
Yeah, Power Rangers, right? And because the Five Rangers is the original Japanese title. Well, they did the Power Rangers, and then they did this giant big budget movie, and they gave them like super big budget costumes and all these big specs. And it was like, it kind of loses the charm, the cheap spandex with guys flipping around with men with like train headpieces on as the cameo of trains was kind of fun. But once you get up to the giant big budget ooze monsters, it's like, not quite as interesting,
Definitely. 70 fantasy horror genre films. Man, I was looking through your pictures, and it's just nonstop sword master, jouster.
Yeah, I've got like 60 Renaissance festivals before I said, I think that's enough.
That's a lot. I've been to
some
it.
of them are
I
only
like
one
them.
day, so it's not like I spent all my. But somebody once said, me and Charlton Heston, most of our careers, neither one of us wore pants. I was either in tights or kilts for a lot of my work. and a lot of low budget movies, stuff that shows up on Cinemax. I've got one I think's a really good film coming out this September called Blood Mixed, where I play the most evil ghost slave master character that I've ever the vilest character I've ever played. I'm gonna have to change my look when the movie comes out, but
cool.
Yeah, so I'm still doing stuff, just not as much as I used to. I'm writing a lot more now.
And then you had a book come out, A Cowboy in Carpathia, a Bob Howard adventure. Would you consider that a Weird West? I love Weird West.
Oh yeah, well,
definitely.
It's not so much a weird Western as it. The premise is that Robert E. Howard, who created Conan, he committed suicide at age 36.
Yes.
And at age 30, and he in 1936, and I said, well, what would happen if he hadn't? So the book begins with him choosing not to, and then with because his mother was dying, he takes the money from her bequest and travels the world. And of course, the first person he meets is Mina Harker from the Dracula novels and her daughter, and then gets involved fighting the Wallachian prince himself. So
awesome.
it literally is a cowboy in Carpathia.
I'm gonna have to pick it up. I love Vlad the Impaler and Dracula, like anything. Like I'll collect the weird little figures, like crazy stuff on eBay of Vlad.
Yeah, and the thing is that I really I don't like the sexy Dracula. To me, he's supposed to be scary as hell. He is, we're below him on the food chain, and so I worked very hard that he is a nobleman who thinks of himself as important, but he kills children. It's what he does, and it doesn't matter to him. It's like wringing the neck of a chicken. And so, at one point, Gwendolyn has been kidnapped by him, and Dracula, she goes, my friend is from Texas, and she goes, he's a poet, and he goes, I don't fear poets. And she goes, you should. He's from Texas.
Nice.
And it's true. You should have, but I won't give anything away.
Yeah, definitely. You can get that on Amazon, right?
It's on Amazon as well as the new one that just came out, Chronicles of the Skull Mask, which is, again, I'm really lucky with my covers.
Yeah.
It's the premise is that the Skull Mask appears at different ages and different times to different people whenever they need just vengeance. So horrible things happen to people, and the mask shows up, and when they wear it, they have the memories and the abilities of the others who've worn it, and it allows them to get vengeance, which is justice in their lives. So it's 6 different stories in different time periods.
Cool. And if any of the listeners want to check out his site, theurbanswashbuckler.com, that's theurbanswashbuckler.com. And I know you've been in Dracula play and Frankenstein and stuff like that.
Yes, actually, I did.
Favorites.
For the 100th year anniversary of Dracula, we did a new production of it, 3-hour production. And on Halloween that year, we did it twice. So nice. 6 hours of me going around as the Wallachian prince. And I got to pop out of a coffin, and I got to be staked at the end. It was awesome. Got to crawl up the wall holding a baby doll in a sack, so the arms and legs were moving, and it was crying. It was great. And I played the Frankenstein monster in a musical in Reno. Frankenstein, the monster musical. But I did not. Well, I sang in character, but you don't ever want to hear me sing for real. That's real horror.
I was looking through some of your pictures, and on your profile and on Google, and I saw the Dracula play. I think that was on your profile. But another interesting thing I saw was you with a picture with Billy Drago, which
yes, I did.
Cool.
Oh, he was the coolest guy. I did a film with him called Strike Zone. And he plays, of course, the head of a terrorist organization, because what else would Billy Drago play? But he was just like coolest, slickest guy. And I'd read the script, of course, and I did stunts in it, and I was art directing on it as well. And I have a small role as an actor, but mostly stunts. But I'd read the script, And I'm thinking, well, it's okay. This is kind of and then I heard him read the lines, and it was an absolute lesson in how an actor can take some simple line like "you do this and I'll do that" and turn it into something else. And just like I was on the set and I got chills listening to him say lines. I knew what they were in advance, but not the way he said them. It was just awesome.
And then, of course, for our audience, he was in Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider and Brian De Palma's The Untouchables, and that's
he was Frank Nitti in The Untouchables.
Yeah, he was he played good creepy roles. Like
he was great. And the thing is, he was like, he was he's Native American. And
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, his first movie was what's it called? It was something Winterhawk, I believe. And the entire movie is done in Lakota. There's no English. It's all done with subtitles. And that was his first film role. And he just he's a really nice guy, really relaxed, really cool. But man, he just commanded. He's in like a lot of TV shows in the 70s and 80s too, you know. I've been very lucky to work with a lot of really cool people. I always say it reads better than it lived because it was just me making a living, you know, and going from job to job. I did, 200 or 300 episodes of soap operas in New York. Usually on Guiding Light, I was a cop. On the others, I was usually a hitman. I used to wear my hair. Okay, don't point and laugh. I used to wear my hair in a mullet because I could do the Renaissance fairs on the weekend with the hair down and then literally pin it up underneath and be a cop during the week on the soap opera. And it really was, business up front, fun in the back, but I got to work with a lot of really cool people. Actually, it's really funny. The biggest thrill I ever had was when I was a kid growing up. There was a show called Soupy Sales. And he had White Fang and Blacktooth with these puppets. And the bad guy was Onions Oregano, played by Frank Nastasi. And one of the first jobs I got was doubling the lead in a pilot where Frank Nastasi played the lead detective's chauffeur sidekick. And we spent the whole weekend doing Soupy Sales jokes with each other. And I've never had more fun in my life because here was my childhood right in front of me, and that was 30 years ago. And it's still like the most fun I've ever had.
Sounds like it for sure. I think I may have seen Winterhawk before. I looked it up, but definitely I'll have to look it up again. I may have seen it a long time ago.
Yeah, there's only one white actor in it. There's an old Englishman who plays like the old grandpa, and he's so wrinkly you can't tell he's white, but everything is spoken in native language. It's really pretty cool.
Cool. We do have a lot of reverence for natives here and shamanism, and do a lot of shows on that kind of stuff. There ain't nothing like hearing like a medicine man or woman. We've had them both on, sitting back and talking about Bigfoot and UFOs and weird star people stuff with you. I don't get any better than that.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. But definitely love it, and I'm loving this show. This is great too. I'm definitely enjoying it. And the soap opera thing, I'm just trying to imagine that.
Well, you know what? In New York in the 80s, 70s and 80s and 90s, the steady work for actors was soap operas. There was like 7 or 8 of them in New York, and they always needed bodies. And there were a lot of actors who were like, "Oh, never look on a soap opera. That's lowbrow." And it's like, you're getting paid union wage. You work on a soap opera, and what was cool is, you most of the time the CBS soap operas tape, they would do like block tape, block dress tape. You'd shoot it at once, each scene, and then you'd leave. The ABC ones would do an entire run through in blocking. Then at like 11 o'clock, an entire run through in dress rehearsal. And then at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, an entire run through of the whole thing again. And that's the one they'd tape. So if you worked on ABC, you were there for 10-hour day, 12-hour day. If you got called for Guiding Light and your call was 11 o'clock, you were out by noon. You know, it was a great way to make a living. You know, and I worked pretty steady. I was like guiding light. I was always a cop because I'm Scots-Irish background and I look good in a uniform. So, you know, and they had a lot of tall actors on guiding light. A lot of them were summer theater actors, musical theater actors. And they were all tall.
A lot of people make fun of actors that are in soap operas because they're, you know, sometimes they're kind of schlocky. But if you just described how the work is, you're given 5 days worth of script to film. You have to memorize on a weekend.
Oh yeah,
film 3 days, 4 days straight in a row. And if you don't get it right, you're fired.
Yeah, no, it is and I mean, in the old days they used to do them live, which I can't even imagine. But yeah, if you did more than 2 takes of something, they would consider like, well, you can't handle the work here. Mm-hmm. So you got to get it right. And some actors who were like the lead stories, they might have 10 to 15 pages a day that they were doing, that they would have to memorize and work with. So it was a great training ground. I mean, the number of actors from Christopher Reeve to Gene Hackman to all of them, they all worked on soaps at one point or another. Of course, I don't have any of their money, but but you know, it was work. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
you know,
I've only been on camera one time, and I'll tell the story. I know Stacey Brown. He's in a lot of Bigfoot stuff, and he's been in a movie with Tom Green and that Les Stroud Survivor show, and he kind of looks like a Bigfoot Jesus. But anyway, he came to my house on Silver Lake and filmed me for a documentary. And I had the camera in my face. I was nervous out of my mind. I had some crazy, weird alien model that I had, you know, because I collect weird aliens and Bigfoot, you know, anything I can find, and Vlad the Impalers and Nosferatus. but anyway, I had this thing in my hand, and I'm talking about aliens, and I'm nervous. I probably didn't sleep at all the night before because I was nervous. And then he said I did a really great job. And then he gets to wherever, and something was wrong with the audio equipment, so they couldn't use it. And that was my first TV experience, and I haven't had one since. But I think one tear rolled down my cheek.
When I first got my union card a million years ago, the first 3 or 4 times that I worked, I was never on screen at the same time I was speaking. They'd always be cutting to the lead when I had a line like, "Phone for you, sir." You know, and so I would start to do this, and they would cut to his face, and you'd hear me say, "Phone for you, sir," and he'd take the phone off camera. You know, so for a while I started to think I was cursed that they were never going to have my face and my voice in the same place.
So how did you deal with anxiety? Did you deal with it a lot at first? Is it always there? It's like I get anxious every show.
Well, you know, if you're not a little nervous, then you shouldn't be doing it because it means you don't want to do your best. But I mean, I got into stunts because I don't get nervous that way. And I'm always worried about not doing a good job. But one of the things I understand is if you get nervous, you can't do a good job. So I did enough bad auditions, and I did enough, you know, shall we say, less than wonderful schmo budget movies and student films that I kind of got comfortable with it. And it still doesn't mean I don't have that nightmare about was my zipper, or my zipper break, or do I look like an idiot in this lighting? But you eventually kind of, you enter the church of the Bigfoot Jesus. You just give it up and say it'll be what it'll be, and just do the best you can. I've been in a lot of bad movies, but I pride myself in whatever it is. I've always done the best job I could, so I'm never ashamed of them.
What are some of the horror ones that you've been in? I love horror.
I did the Bog Creatures. I did Igor and the Lunatics, which was voted one of the worst films of 1986. I'll have you know, but it has the distinction of being the first movie in history of cinema where a woman gets tied to a log in a sawmill, and no one saves her.
Oh,
all right. No one saves her. I mean, the film has a really weird checkered history, but the fact is that, I was a cult leader in that, and I did a movie last year where I was a cult leader, because apparently people look at me and go, You look like you should be leading a bunch of people that are psychopaths. Why, thank you. So I got a movie now on Amazon Prime, Second Chance, where I'm an evil cult leader again.
Funny, yeah. I was just gonna say my yearbook. Someone wrote that when you get older, you'll probably be a cult leader or something.
Well, here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
Now be my Kool-Aid. You know.
Yeah. Church of Mabus. Definitely still broke. So cult leaders have more money than me for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they didn't say you'd be a successful cult leader. They just said you'd be a cult leader. There's, for every Jim Jones, there's a Joe Smith.
For sure.
No, but I've done a lot of that stuff. That I'm in the incredibly interesting Lord of the G Strings.
I'm
like 8 or 9 different parts in it, and I choreographed all the fights in it because they shot 2 versions. There's one version called Lord of the Strings, which is better edited, has more fights and more jokes. And then Lord of the G Strings is the one that has a little more TNA. And that's the one that got showed on Cinemax apparently every half hour for like a year or 2 years. I couldn't turn around without someone going, "Are you?" I'm like, yeah. But I said, I did Second Chance. I did Citizen Toxic. I'm in Trauma's War. I got killed 19 times in Trauma's War as different guys, different stunt guys. I even have some lines. My buddy was there one day more than me, and he died 22 times, and I'll never forgive him for that. But I'm usually the guy who goes, "Hey, you." Well, at least I used to be the guy who went, "Hey, you can't come in here." And then the hero punches me and I fall down the stairs. Now that I'm silver-haired, I tend to be the guy who goes, "You go, kill him," and dispatch. So I've kind of moved up into the cat petting stage of my career, from Jaws to Blofeld myself.
I remember some movie on Cinemax, and I always wanted to see it, but I never did. It was like Prudence or something, but it was about a chick in Bigfoot, and I never got to see it. Oh,
that sounds
I'm pretty
awesome.
sure it was terrible, but
I'm pretty sure it'll show up on Shudder.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, the thing is, I've done a lot of them. I mean, it's funny in the 80s, a lot of stuff got started and never released, and then a lot of stuff got incorporated. Other things. I was a stunt coordinator on Grimm's. Was it Dead Time Stories? Is what it was released as ultimately. And I don't know if I'm on camera or not. I think I'm just doing stunt coordinating. But there's a lot of that stuff where I'll show up for a day or two. I'll do work and head on. I got one on another one on Amazon Prime now called Stupor Hero, which is a superhero comedy short. Well, I play Commissioner Bureaucrat, the head of the Superheroes League. And yes, I did Foghorn Leghorn's voice for the entire short.
Nice.
Yes. I looked at the director, reading lines. I said, "Can I do it in this voice?" And I did it in that voice. And he fell down laughing and said, "If you don't, you're fired." So indeed, I did do it in that voice. I've been very lucky. I've been very blessed with people say it's a dog eat dog business, but it's really not. It's dog help dog. I have a lot of friends in the business, particularly in the stunt business. You rely on each other. So I've been very lucky to work with a lot of really talented people. I did a lot of stunts on the soap operas. I used to double Asa on One Life to Live, when he falls downstairs and stuff. I've been pretty lucky with all of the ultimately weird things that connect. And that's like
definitely that movie was called that movie was called Sweet Prudence and the Erotic Adventure of Bigfoot. And it says sex comedy about a group of people who are sexually adventurous and decide to spend their summer in a resort by the lake, but soon realize they are not alone, as an infamous cryptid with big feet that is not the only big part of his anatomy makes his presence not known. And it looks terrible. It definitely looks horrible.
And for that reason alone, people will rent it. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's an entire subgenre of cryptid erotica and dinosaur erotica. I mean, it's amazing. There's a huge subsection of stuff that people write and sell. And
There
people
was
buy.
some lady that did Bigfoot books. She's making like 30 to 100 grand or something on there about that. So
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
weird erotic
Well,
Bigfoot books.
it's. I always knew that I could, I would fall down forever, but eventually I wouldn't be able to get up. So that's when I started writing. So I had something to like transition into, and I've been lucky to be able to do that. But I've yet to venture into Bigfoot erotica as my writing. I kind of prefer to stick to adventure and pulp and horror stuff. If you thank you.
Maybe
Unless
come
somebody
on.
has a check,
Maybe
then of
maybe
course,
one day.
maybe I never say never. I've learned enough. This is a business you just never say never.
I've thought about it with the Bigfoot thing. It's like maybe I should do some of that. Make 100 grand a month.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if I knew I'd make 100 grand a month, of course.
Yeah.
But
I'll probably make $12.
that's the thing. If you did it and didn't make the money, you'd really feel dirty. I don't mind feeling dirty and having enough money to wash it off.
I think Amazon has got rid of some of that stuff too. Like they monitor it, so there's certain levels to it for sure.
Yeah.
I know the book was called, I'm going to say COME for Bigfoot. I'm not sure if it was spelled the other way, but I don't remember the lady's name, but I don't even know if they still sell them on there, but it's funny regardless. But I got to know about one thing, and then I want Jay to get some questions in here. We try to kind of balance it out. But when it comes to jousting and these Renaissance festivals, when you're there, first off, do you always have to talk like you're, Shakespearean or whatever with the accents and stuff?
Well, you basically, if you once I'm on the grounds, I'm always in character. I never drop out of character at all, because people are coming there to have an experience that's different from their regular life. And one of the other things that's really nice is that you can insult people if you have a good accent and they think it's hilarious. You can look at people and go, "You're a piece of scum. You're a turd behind an elephant, lad," and they laugh and think it's hilarious. So, I was lucky to, again, I trained. I worked a lot at the New York Renaissance Festival, and then I did others. But one of the things there is you just don't break character. Once you're out in front of house, I got trained to the point where as soon as I put the costume on, the accent came with it, and that was that. In fact, we used to have a rule. If you were still doing your forsooth accent by the time you got to the campfire after work, you had to buy a round of drinks for everybody. Because sometimes when you get into the accent, it's hard to get out. And somebody will be stuck in it, particularly a newbie who'll be stuck in that accent for a couple hours afterwards. And, they're buying drinks for everybody else.
So is it the stuntman part play heavily into jousting there? I mean, obviously. I
only rode the joust a couple of times in the small fairs. I was a ground fighter for the most part and choreographed. Although I was one of the guys who could pull the guy off the horse. But yes, it's all stunts. It's all hard work. And you're doing it in summer heat, often in heavy clothing, and you're doing it live in front of people, so you can't mess up. And in many ways, working film stunts is a lot easier. You don't have to have the endurance. Working at a Renaissance fair, figure you're doing a 2-day Renaissance fair. All right. You get up the night before, you're up at 7 a.m, getting into costume, and you work from 9 a.m. until 6 or 7. You're in the sun, you're on your feet the entire time, and you're doing 4, 5, 6 fights. Plus you might be doing a Shakespearean play. Then you got to get up and do it again the next day. And I don't, because I'm actually a teetotaler, but often the campfires, one could ignite the fumes. And so a lot of those actors then have to deal with their Sunday performance hungover and make it through the day. So it's when we used to call on the 3-day weekend, Labor Day weekend would always be a 3-day show. And we would call that Black Monday, because after 2 full days of doing it, by Monday, everyone in the group was so exhausted. We were pushing through really hard to get through that day and give the audience the same performance they got if they came on Saturday. So, we would fall over. I was younger then. I couldn't do a 3-day fair now. Well, I could if you paid me, but I wouldn't want to. It's a hard job. And it's the kind of the blue collar, but once you do it, you understand what it was like to work in Shakespeare's time. You understand how they had to, and a lot of it's improvisational. So you're looking directly at people and you're dealing with people during the day. I actually wrote a murder mystery set at a Renaissance fair that used a lot of the real stuff from my life. Because a lot of stuff goes on. I mean, you get a lot of drunks, you get a lot of people who want to challenge you. They'll pull out a knife and go, "Hey, come on, let's joust." And, you look at them and go, and you'll think, he's got a 2-inch knife. I have a 3-foot broadsword on my hip. I don't think he's thought this through very well.
Yeah.
So there'd always be a couple of sheriff's deputies escorting people out at various points.
I've been to one in Georgia a few times, and there's one that's in Dothan, Alabama. I'm in Florida now, but Dothan's not too far. I want to go to that, but I mean, I'm sure different areas are different for each one or whatever. Mine are down south in the Bible Belt, so I'm not sure if that changes them any. I'm sure it's the same atmosphere, but there might be
a lot of the same
pocket knife people.
a lot of the same performers will work the circuit. You can actually work for like 7 months of the year doing Renaissance fairs. You work up, and then you work,
Wow.
like there used to be a huge one in Texas, and I actually did a film on the New Orleans Renaissance Fair. There's one just outside New Orleans, and gorgeous location. I mean, it looks like you're really in a period village. It's got like its own river and stuff, and I did an off-season film there. So that it's really, there's something like 250 or 300 Renaissance fairs around the country. It's really popular. I mean, it's you're literally stepping into a D&D game, and it's, it has nothing to do with history, but that's okay. Neither do most Hollywood movies that take place in the time periods.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. When they say Renaissance, it doesn't mean like the Renaissance age. It's more, or is it? I mean, what's the connection?
The first one was done as like the summer program for the circus school in Florida. And because most circus skills are really kind of Renaissance, medieval oriented. And so they really kind of, it's very loosely, there's one they do at the Cloisters Medieval Fair here in Manhattan. And it started out and they tried to have things that were only medieval. But you really can't. Eventually it becomes kind of fantasy oriented, and you have Robin Hood and Queen Elizabeth at the same fair. Really? You have King Arthur wandering through. So, it becomes like a weird mishmash of a video game. But it's about giving a show to people. So it's a lot of the same skills. It's, it's juggling and magic shows and comedy and music, and so it's a really fun time. I always, when I teach I teach theatrical sword at colleges, and I always tell the actors, do one season of a medieval or Renaissance fair, and you really understand the roots of acting. But if you do more than one, you won't get out. You'll have a monkey on your back who's wearing tights. You just won't get out. You'll end up doing 60 like me. It's a very addicting, pleasant life for the performers. Hard work, but very delightful. I still have fun.
Yeah, they're fun. I want to go to the one in Dothan and check it out. I don't know when it comes back. I got to check. I want to start going to powwows. We've been wanting to go to those, but all the COVID stuff happened. Me and my family.
Yeah, this last year was tough.
I've never been to one, but I'm going to.
They're awesome.
Eventually.
I've gone to a couple of the powwows here in Brooklyn, and they're some of it's really spiritually very beautiful. There's Cherokee somewhere in this, and but I've always felt the affinity, and it's just lovely to see the dancers and hear the music, and And even that, a lot of it is not quite as accurate because still it's about putting on a show.
Yes.
You want to entertain the audience, but some of it's really quite transforming. It's fun.
Definitely.
And you don't have to worry about getting scalped, so you're safe.
Yeah. I have some Cherokee in this blood as well. My great grandmother, or one of them, I saw a picture, and she was definitely native for sure. But I don't know, for some reason DNA don't pick it up. I don't know exactly. Ancestry.com didn't pick it up. They said it won't even read it, but some places I hear will. So I don't know. It's confusing.
For all they say it's a science. It's not that exact because certain of those different DNA companies have better databases than others. And I've had friends who've done one and then they did the other and it was able to narrow it down. And so they're actually going to look at a third one because it really does. It depends on their tests. And you got to figure they're doing a lot of them. So it's not going to be like forensically perfect, like it would be if it really mattered. I keep thinking about doing that one of these days.
It's interesting. Mine's got a lot of Irish, Scottish, European, and there's some Scandinavia or something. So, but a native, the guy told me on the phone, it didn't pick that up. So, but I've heard of other people who've done it at other places. Maybe that 23andMe, and it actually may say more. I don't know if that's the one, but I know you got to kind of research it if you're looking for that for sure.
Yeah. I figure at this point the government's got DNA based on me anyway, so it's not like I have to worry about them suddenly being able to clone me. No one wants another one of me.
Well, one thing I want to ask you, and this is kind of off the cuff, and if you don't have anything to share about it, that's fine. But one reason I do this show is weird paranormal stuff. Like I'll tell my story briefly, just the quick version. When I was 17, I went to testicular cancer and had to go through chemo and stuff. I'm fine now. It's been a long time ago. I'm 46, but I went through all that, and then my dad died like a year or so later. I started having very strange paranormal type experiences that was possibly my father trying to communicate. And that's what made me do the show. I even had some weird UFO stuff. And I don't think I've been taken or anything, but I've seen stuff in the sky and going, what the hell is this over my house? And people are like, I think it's here for you, friends. and anyway, I've had military, you name it, nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman. I could go on and on. Anybody you've seen in a documentary about this stuff, I've had them on. But I'm kind of curious, have you ever had any paranormal experiences? And if you haven't, that's fine. But I like to ask.
No, I actually have. When I gotta say, the first Ren Fair that I did was in Rhode Island, and we used to do on Friday night something called Friar Tuck's Flicks. Don't say that fast. And
Friar Tuck's Flicks. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And we'd show a movie outdoors, but we would do like some sword shows and some kind of a flavor of what the Ren Fair was going to be at the end of the semester because it was a performing arts school. And one night we're all sitting there and we looked up and sure enough, there was something in the sky. Now, one of the guys with us, Charlie, was an Army observer. That was his job. And we're sitting there and he's looking at it and he goes, that ain't one of ours, guys. They don't move that way. And so immediately we're all like, yeah, well, okay. And we watched it for about 15 minutes. And I mean, it was not discernible as to shape or, but it was behaving in a way that it wasn't just a light slowly moving across the sky the way a distant plane might be, or even the reflection of a distant plane by me. It was doing maneuvers. It was there, and then it was there, and then it moved there. So, but I've been convinced. I mean, I read We Are Not the First, and I read Von Daniken when it first came out. So I've always had that sense that we are not alone. I don't, it's arrogant to think that we're the only species that's reached any level of sentience. But I've also, I've done paranormal research, attended seances, and I've had, it could be subjective experiences, but I've had experiences that lead me to very definitely believe. I know that there's survival. I mean, as a stuntman, I've written my will twice, where I was doing something that I went, this is one I can't control, and it could go bad. And so and about 3 years ago, I had an operation where it was one of those things where I was going to be under for 6 hours, and I wasn't so much worried about the operation, but 6 hours under anesthesia, that can do things to you. So, and even then, I had to look at the will, you write out the will. So, I've had a great deal of comfort in believing there is something beyond. I don't know that any particular group of people has the lock on exactly what it is or exactly how to get there, and what books to read or what beads to hold. But yeah, I know that there are definitely more things than are dreamt of in our philosophy.
Most definitely. One of my big experiences I've seen with my physical eyes completely sober more than once, beings of light, like a person made of light, leave my house. And it was like it was inside my home and it came out through, like passed through the roof and went into the heavens. I saw two of them leave my house completely sober. I wasn't even weed, not tobacco, not anything, completely sober. And I've seen stuff messed up too, but it's good that you're sober and you see it. But because that's validation that you're not crazy completely.
Yeah, it's good to have comparison.
But from
yeah,
from what I've gathered, and I don't try to push on anyone, I think we're like a weird race of alien energy beings or something weird, like Cocoon, Ron Howard. There you go.
Well, I'll jump in that pool. I'm old enough now. Yeah, I think that well, we know that we are beings of electrical energy. We know we have, even Western science now acknowledges the concept of auras and energy fields. And I've been in the martial arts all my life, and I know for a fact there are energy fields that you can manipulate. There are pressure points which are just now becoming recognized by the West. So I think, I am reasonably skeptic and reasonably a believer. I'm perfectly willing to accept if it seems like it's going somewhere. And I said, I'm predisposed to thinking, yeah, I certainly believe there are cryptids. I certainly believe that we have not. I mean, we keep finding, Sumatra, they just found a new jungle like 3 years ago with like hundreds of species of stuff that they'd never seen.
Yes.
So I'm waiting for the day when Nessie is incontrovertibly photographed. I'm waiting for the day when a skunk ape is caught live, or one of them. Because on the other hand, I also am a little afraid of it, because as long as they're still unexplored, there's always something more. I like the idea that there's something over the horizon that we may not have seen.
Definitely.
But that appeals to my romantic heart. It's why I write fiction.
I actually have a book called Praise for the Hairy Man, The Secret Life of Bigfoot. I wrote with Andrew Colvin, the Mothman photographer, and it's interviews with different written interviews and radio transcripts with Bigfoot personalities, and it's fun and it gets crazy. There's one with the guy that claims he shot one, and I don't know if that was true, but there's the ones with natives. There's like the serious dude that's out there all the time, which I would never do. I'd die from the heat and ticks. But then there's funny. It's a good book, but it's just interviews. It's a fascinating subject for sure. There's so many weird ways to go with it. There's even, Stan Gordon is a very serious investigator from Pennsylvania, and he has all these Bigfoot UFO cases where people see Bigfoot and UFO stuff at the same time.
Well, they're very definitely I think there's been 6 identifiable different possibly non-terrestrial races, and one of them is identified as the large hairy creatures that may or may not be a servant race or an offshoot. We know that the Habitus florentis, which was basically a 3-foot hominid offshoot from humanity, existed possibly up as late as the late 1400s.
Yes.
And so, worldwide legends of little people and worldwide legends of hairy men of the forest, you're not going to get that much of that much stuff if there's not some basis for truth. Even if they've died out by now, they're, you know, we know for a fact we're not the only hominid species that was around.
Yeah.
We seem to be the one that won, but you know, then again, sometimes I look around the crowd of people and think, no, we didn't win.
I've had natives on. They wrote a book, Iroquois Supernatural, and I have trouble remembering the author, but it's at Inner Traditions. But he wrote in his book about at the corn harvest festivals, the little people would come up and they would trade like stuff, and they'd leave gems and stuff. And he was dead serious. Like I wasn't there, so I don't know, but he was dead serious that these little people were coming up and like Willow.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating for sure. But definitely love it. Well, let's let Jay drop some aces there. Come on, Jay.
Yeah. Oh, no, well, I actually want to go back to the Toxic Avenger because I want to ask you about the special effect where the kid gets run over with the car. As a kid, I was fascinated with movies, and I still am, and I have a degree in cinematography and videography, so I haven't really done anything with it. But my father took me to see my first R-rated movie, which was The Eagle Has Landed. And there's this great scene where they're assaulting this church, and a grenade falls in front of this guy, and he lands on it, and it blows a hole in his back. And I'm like, how did they do that? I got to figure that out. And then also later on, I saw The Guns of Navarone, and there's one scene where they're on a boat, and this one guy a shell hits the boat, and he bursts into flames and dives in the water. I'm like, how did they do that? I got to find out. So I could try to figure these things out. And then I saw Toxic Avenger, and they run over this kid's head, and it looks so real that my senior thesis for video at SCAD in Georgia, I wanted to make the bad guy have his head split open with a battle warhammer. So I bought a whole bunch of different fruits and vegetables, and I took a couple of bottles of Caro syrup and made it into Caro blood. And the one that worked the best out of all the tests was a honeydew melon. I lopped it off like a pumpkin, cored it out, put white cauliflower in it, filled it with Caro blood, nailed the cap back on it, put a wig on it, and I had my roommate who was 6'2" and like 280, big dude. And I have a real Warhammer that I bought from Museum Replicas that makes really nice weapons.
Yeah.
It took him 3 strikes to break open this melon with a giant hammer. And I filmed it on 3/4 videotape, and there's no other special effects, no makeup, and it's just like a fake body behind it, and this melon head. And he cracked it open, and the cauliflower brain popped out and all the blood oozed out, and I showed it to my class, and all the girls in the class went, "Ooh!" And I went, "That's all I need." And I went to go sit down, and my teacher's like, No, you come back up here. You're gonna get the review now. We're gonna pull it apart. And I'm like, dude, I don't need any other review. I got what I wanted. That's the effect I wanted. So I still to this day don't know how they did that kid's getting his head run over. So hopefully you were there. Were you there when they filmed that?
I wasn't there when they filmed that, but chances are they made a gelatin head.
Yeah.
You can actually take a cast of a head, or if you see the face, you can take a cast of the head and do a gelatin shot, and you can run it with the real actor up until frame or two before it gets hit. Mm-hmm. And then do a substitution, and you can get away with murder. I've done live. I did I've choreographed every Shakespearean play except King John, and most of them a couple of times. I've done the Scottish play, I don't know, a dozen times. And I always like to do what I call the chiclet moment. Because if you take a chiclet and you cut it in half, it's exactly the right size as human teeth.
Yeah.
So I always have an actor at some point who's got 3 or 4 of them in their mouth, along with some stage blood. And I always have somebody else come along in the fight and smash him across the face with a sword handle, and he turns and have him spit it out into the audience. Because I want the people in the first row to think this is a Gallagher concert.
Right. And
I want them to go, "Oh my God, did he?" Oh no, I want them to be afraid for the actor for just a minute.
Right.
But I did one with a fake ear, where I had like a pirate bandana, and I had an ear on for the entire show with makeup that matched. And then we did a fight, and the guy goes this with the blade and gunk, and hit the bandana, which has the blood pack, pull the fake ear off, and throw it in the audience. And I was never off stage where I could have put it on. So there was no assumption that I went off, put on a fake gear, and came out. They didn't realize it had been on the entire play.
Right.
So, but one of the things I studied for the stage combat and for film is theatrical magic, sleight of hand magic.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you can play to the expectation. They expect to see this, and you set it up for them to see this, and then they see it. But what they're really seeing is something else. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, if you'd had an actor with that same wig on, looking to the audience and then laying down and doing this, and then cut to the guy coming with that, and cut right to when you hit it on the wig, you would have had absolute proof that he hit you. The audience would have the after effect that he hit the actual actor with no doubt.
Yeah.
You know, we are set up to have expectations, and we follow through on those expectations. Mm-hmm. I mean, now they do a lot of it digitally. I still prefer physical effects.
Yeah, I'm with you. In-camera effects are the best because you it's hard to fake it, and then people are going to be going, "How in the hell did they do that?" And it's like you said, if you cut to it from one take to the fake take, where the fake brain, most people aren't going to notice.
Yeah, and if if you're doing switching camera angles to begin with, when you do that one particular one, as long as you don't linger on it. See, mm-hmm. the thing about Troma is they did everything very cheaply. They would get a lot of young people who were coming in, a lot of whom would work for essentially free, in some cases actually free. They'd work for food and credit. So you had a lot of really talented people who would put more into it than it cost because they wanted this one to be the good one. They mm-hmm. wanted this one to be, and so you'd end up with a lot of really good stuff. Sometimes not photographed very well. They didn't care about things like matching lighting and stuff.
Yeah.
But the individual effects, they were all about the gore. They were all about making it shocking and making it big. And yeah, I mean, they probably did it with a gel head. I don't remember that particular one because I don't remember which toxic that was in because there were.
It's the first movie.
Yeah, and see, I only saw the first movie like maybe once, and that was a gazillion years ago.
Yeah, I've seen it like once or twice. I've seen it the same thing a zillion years ago.
Like for instance, the fight scene when Toxie fights the devil on fire. I know the stunt guys who did it. I worked with them, and that whole scene where the devil is a practical full body suit with an oxygen tank, and he really is on fire. Mm-hmm. But because it's a full body suit, he's literally blind.
Right.
So they had to work the fight out with him doing it with his eyes closed and the other guy reacting to it as mm-hmm. Toxie. And then they had to shoot it with this guy literally being blind, not knowing if he's making the marks, and the other guy had to duck around him. Mm-hmm. But when it's shot, I think they shot that with 3 cameras. When it puts together, it looks for all the world like he's going for a specific mark, and mm-hmm. I love that unreality of it. Actually, that's one of the reasons I like working on soap operas, because you could be on these. Nothing was ever real on the soaps, so it was always sets. But you'd have like sets of gardens and it felt cool because it was like, this isn't real. Sometimes on movies you're shooting in real locations, right. And it doesn't feel like Hollywood to me. I love the unreality of mm-hmm. shooting on a set, but it looks better for camera if you can shoot to the real place. But I love that about working on the soaps when I did, because you'd be I'm in a mansion in Carpathia, and then right next to it is their soda shop set, back to back. So it really felt like old Hollywood.
And the old Hollywood movies they don't make them like they used to anymore. And Hollywood, I think, is just they've run out of ideas. I mean, they just keep rehashing and rehashing. I mean, there's 2 different movies of Thor that are within the same time frame as the big budget Thor.
Oh yeah, well that's the asylum. Those guys at the asylum. They also made Snakes on a Train. Yeah, the transmogrifiers. They are blatantly low budget and lovingly so. I love cinema, but I really love flicks. Yeah. I love B movies too.
I love Z Nation. Z Nation was good. That show. That was good.
Yeah. And the thing is, Z Nation basically said, "Look, we're going to do The Walking Dead, but we're going to have a sense of humor about it. Okay, so let's go have fun." Because at this point, if you don't laugh at zombies, you're going to kind of get used up. I just sold a zombie story to an anthology, and you got to have a sense of humor about it because they're kind of mostly been done. Yeah. You got to find a new way to do them because it is the cheapest thing in the world, which is why there's a gazillion zombie movies. Just here, slap some gray paint on Gary and go make him stumble in the room.
Yeah, I liked Army of the Dead. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing. It was still fun to watch. That new one by Zack Snyder. It was fun.
Yeah, well, he's trying to do something different. He says, "I'll do zombies, but I'll do a caper movie that happens to have zombies." He's trying to find that new wrinkle for it. I mean, you got to find something different to do with it.
And Jay, just 1 second, I'll let you swing back in there. But one thing I was going to say about Army of the Dead, that's a good one, Jay, to watch. There's a lot of weird stuff in there that I didn't notice when I watched it, but I saw them talking about it in the article. There's like weird time loops where they walk up to their own like dead bodies. There's like a robot weird zombie situation where one has kind of like a Terminator. Like there's weird stuff in there. Like he put weird little secrets in there that are weird.
Yeah, I read an interview with him talking about how that, and some of it was like, oh, let's just do it, and some of it was, I have an idea what to do when I do it. So some of it was just to see if anybody even noticed.
Yeah, it was weird. It was good. It was fun. I like Dave. Dave
Bautista. He's going to be the Kurgan in the remake of Highlander.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
He was announced a couple of years ago, and they've been waiting to get their Highlander. So now they've got Henry Cavill and Dave Bautista's, and you can't think of a better Kurgan than Dave Bautista.
Superman, and what's his character in the Guardians? Superman and
he's Drax.
Drax, yeah. Superman and Drax go at it. That's awesome. That should be really cool.
Yeah. He's fun. He's he's stage combat, which I did, and pro wrestling. I actually did some of that, but pro wrestling is stage combat. It's you watch them if you know that some of those guys are so good at taking care of each other. They cradle their head just right because if you really did that move, it would really kill somebody.
Yeah,
Well,
in the 70s, what really brought the wrestling out was for the most part it was sports players that were either injured and couldn't stay with their sport. They wanted something to do, and then Hollywood stunt players who didn't have a movie to do or were off on hiatus needed something to do to stay in shape. So they got together, and that's what it is. And it's fantastic stunt work, but a lot of people think it's real. And there's a good, funny story, and he's since passed now, but George Michael came from San Diego to Channel 4 DC News here, an NBC affiliate, and he hated wrestling. He didn't even like reporting on it, but he hated it. But because of the nature of, we had Capitol Center back then, and there was huge venue for WWE back then. So he had to report on it, and he's always counting it or calling it fake and just ragging on it. And Jim Vance, who's also passed, was the head the head anchor there for the most part. He loved it. He knew it was fake, but he loved it. But he didn't want to believe it was fake, so he always said it was real. So George Michael one day takes Jim Vance to the Capitol Center. They're watching wrestling while Jim Vance is out there writing his story for the head news the next night. George Michael is in the locker room looking for dirt, and he finds a script that's highlighted, and he runs out to the theater, and he sees this match, and he word for word, he says, "Oh, he's either going to smack him in the face or backslap him, and then his face is going to bleed." And these things would happen in the script. So the next night, he pulls it out, and he's like, "Hey, Jim, you think that wrestling that match you saw today was real?" He's like, "Oh, of course it was." He's like, "Here's the script. It wasn't." And blew him apart on it. It was so funny. But that rivalry, it's not there anymore. You got these new wrestling things that it's just a show. And there's all these weird special effects and fireworks. And I don't know what the new one is. It's on like A&E or TNT. And it's just weird characters. It's not like it was back in the 70s.
Well, it's interesting. In the 70s, Mexican wrestling already had weird characters. They had La Mumia. They had literally a guy who was a mummy who'd come out and just walk around and hit people. And they had gradually that kind of show got absorbed into North. And now they literally have masked wrestlers. They have lucha now as part of, the wrestling world. And now they call it World Wrestling Entertainment, and they call it sports entertainment because they had to get around the lawsuits. I still love it, and I watch the shows every week. I do my workout with the wrestling on because I just love watching them work. Some of them are just brilliant technicians, although some of them are they're hilarious. They're like, these guys are great performers, which is why so many of them now are transitioning to movies.
Yeah, Dwayne Johnson is one of them. So, and then it's funny you said about the sports entertainment. I think it was in the 80s. What's that guy? Frank, the guy that runs WWF, WWE.
Oh, McMahon.
Yeah, McMahon.
Yeah.
The IRS came up to him and said, "Hey, so you're a legitimate sport or you're an entertainment sport?" And he's like, "Oh, we're a legitimate sport." And I'm like, "Oh, well, you owe us for all these decades of back taxes for sports tax." He's like, "Oh, we're entertainment." So yeah, that was in the news, and I was like, "Wow, it's legitimately on paper that they're in entertainment, but people still think, oh, this is real. It's not. It's entertainment." But
no, it's you know what. But there are people who follow the soap. When I was on the soaps, I ended one of the storylines as a Russian. I was a Russian agent that I had to. The hero got killed. I think it was on All My Children. It was one of the ABC ones, and I carried him up into the plane and then slammed the door in his girlfriend's face as she's crying. And this was shot on location at an airport. It was a big deal. People who saw me in supermarkets were yelling at me because I had taken David away and I was mean and closed the door. People get into their stories.
Yeah.
They really get into their stories.
They can't separate the reality from the fake.
Soap operas, and now half of the wrestling show is soap opera stuff. There was a call about 2 months ago for writers for the WWE. Because they hire writers. Well, they have their own studio because they make their own movies. So there's that. But they write, like you say, they script the shows. They say, okay, over this arc, this character is going to be turned into a bad guy. And then at the end of the season, he's going to be redeemed when he saves this guy. And, now they'll change it if the audience is reacting oddly.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, they got to find new ways for it to go and new characters. I mean, that's why wrestlers will come back as 3 or 4 different characters until they find one that clicks.
Yeah, and they have to write it like that because Andre the Giant was a good guy and a bad guy and a good guy and a bad guy all throughout his career.
Same thing with
and they put little different moves in the script for the fight. Like when they get close together, they're whispering to each other, "Hey, what do you want to do next? I don't know, throw me on my face."
Actually, a lot of that is the ref. The ref runs the fight.
Oh, does he?
Okay. And now he'll have an earwick, so the director will be talking to him, and the ref will come in, and when you see him, he's like this. He'll go, "Take him on a rope, do this," and he'll actually give them quick signals. They've worked it out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily every move, but they've worked it out, and they train together all the time. But sometimes they'll flip the script if it's not going, or they gotta.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because up till now, for the last year, they did it in the Thunderdome, with a non-live audience with little screens. They're going to be back out in the audience again. So now they're going to be taking the temperature of people live in the theaters, because they really do. Like I said, it's very much like Ren fairs in that there is no real fourth wall. You are directly dealing with the audience, and I mean, some of those guys, man, they used to get women and stick them with hat pins and cut them on the way to the ring. And they accepted that as sort of part of the deal.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who are wrestlers, and a friend of mine used to wrestle as Gale Force, the Irish Hurricane, Gael, but they train hard. They train harder than almost any other athlete.
You kind of have to. The stuff they're doing in those, especially the really weird one that's on. I can't remember the name of it. It's on every Wednesday on like TNT or whatever on the higher upper channels. They have this guy jumping off of like a 30-foot tower into the ring.
They do a lot of high risk. They do a lot of high risk stuff now. That all started with Mankind with Nick Foley. He was like the guy who pioneered the extreme wrestling and brought it into the mainstream.
Yeah.
Look, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I enjoy it. It's I enjoy many lowbrow things. You know what gets me is in the 80s and 90s, no one would admit they watched wrestling, but it still had the highest ratings of anything. And I used to tell people, "Don't tell me you don't watch it."
I never watched the whole match, but if I was flipping the channels, I'd watch what's going on here. Oh, and if there was the soap opera part, click. But if they were beating each other up, I'm like, I wonder who's going to win this. Oh, it's going to be that guy. Yep, he won.
Yeah. There's an internal story structure to every match, the heel and the face.
Yeah,
and it goes on. I at one point I trained Alpha and Sika, the wild Samoans, to fight for a movie. And hugest human beings I've ever met. Sweetest, gentlest guys. But I'm 6'6" and 280 pounds. They made me feel like Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
It was just huge, but they could move like ballet stars. It was amazing, so, and I always think about that when I, think about what it would be like when a bunch of those Pacific Islanders would be charging on you. Like, yeah, man, I'd be shooting myself because they're all giant and warriors, man.
Or wait till they run past and then join their side.
Yeah, I'm one of you now. One of you. It's okay.
So, all right, I want to get back to some of the rent fairs because I go there all the time. If I can show you. I go as one of the Musketeers. I have the blue tabard and all that.
Oh, cool.
But what you mean, and I don't know if you've ever been to the Maryland Renaissance Festival, but
yes, I have good friends who work there.
Oh, good, because I go there all the time. I love that place. So I've got two near me. There's the Pa Ren Fair up in Pennsylvania. It's like 40 minutes from me, and then there's the Maryland Renaissance Festival. It's like 30 minutes away. Our state sport, individual state sport, is jousting.
Yeah.
And our individual team sport is lacrosse, which is jousting with a ball. But anyway, so the Maryland State Championships are held at the Renaissance Festival at the end of the season, and it's a 3-day event. The first event is not public, so they have a match where they put everybody in a tier, who's first and who's second, whatever. And then Saturday and Sunday, they do a full-speed joust at the end. But during the whole rest of the year, you see the same joust, and they do it every 2 hours. The fair opens at 10. There's a joust at like 12. 1, 12, 2, 4, 6, and they close at 7.
Yeah.
And so that's like a half-speed joust, and it's all. I think that's scripted out.
That's scripted as opposed to the ring jousting, which is the sports stuff.
Right. And then I've seen the jousting at the Pennsylvania Ren Fest, and they go really slow. It's like quarter speed. They go really, really slow. They kind of canter up each other, and the guy pretends to fall off. But as far as the real match goes, I saw one year, and these guys are wearing the real plate armor, like good, 18, 20 gauge armor. One guy got bucked off his horse before he even entered the ring, or before he entered the line.
The list, yeah.
Yeah, the list, that's the one. Threw him off the back of the horse, and he broke his arm, disqualified. And I've seen guys that they do full speed, and they go all 4 limbs backwards off the horse, out. It's amazing. So I don't know if any of the other fairs do the full speed stuff, but that stuff is legitimately real.
Well, no, there's a couple of when I was working in the late 80s, early 90s with it, they weren't doing a lot of body hits yet. They were doing shield hits.
Yeah, ours have like the pauldrons up here.
Yeah, and then it started to become popular to do body hits, and they take full contact hits. See, the scripted stuff is done with breakaway lances.
Yes.
But when they're doing competition like that, they're not breakaway lances. They really they take impacts. Now, there is the advantage we have that they didn't have in medieval times, to have high impact foam underneath the armor, and Kevlar vests, because you really can take a spear hit. The last person I know of who was killed jousting was a jouster in Florida in the 80s, where it was a breakaway lance, but a piece of the lance snapped off on his shield and went through his beaver and into his brain.
Yeah, just like there was a king that died in that same fashion.
King Henry.
Yeah.
So it's it's a very high risk.
Yeah.
Very those guys. A lot of times they basically would find some cowboys that are really good horsemen, and then just train them with just enough sword skill for the groundwork for the fairs. Because as soon as you're on a horse, imagine being on a racing car that has its own mind, and can make a decision to not do what you tell it to.
Yeah, like the guy I was telling you about, that the horse decided, I don't want to do this, get off my back, and the guy got off his back. Unwillingly, he got off his back.
Yep. It is they are a lot of beast, and they have a lot of personality.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the joust horses.
They weigh as much as a car.
Yeah, a lot of the better joust horses are often retired police horses.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because they have good dispositions.
Yeah.
And there's some stamina, or they try, or quarter horses.
Yeah.
The thoroughbreds tend to be a little too high strung.
Yeah.
See, it's weird. They want to. You got to find a horse that's got a good personality and that enjoys running at another. To train a horse to run at another horse, because they see things weirdly compared to us.
Their eyes are on the side of their head. Yeah.
And so they don't have depth perception. So when they're running towards something, it seems bigger to them than it does to us. So you have to get them comfortable with the idea. When the New York Fair, the two horses, it was a game for them. If they looked at each other, they would run past each other. We trained them so that was the fun thing for them to do. Yeah. So you have to keep them. A lot of times you see them, they keep the horse turned away until they're ready to go. And then they turn it around, and as soon as the two horses see each other, they usually go ka-junk, 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 ka-junk.
Yeah, I've noticed that at the mailing restaurant. Once the horses' heads see the list, they're a lot of times they go before the guy says go.
Exactly, because for them that's the run at each other game. So they're trained. It's like when you're doing horse work with guns, you got to train the horse to know that the sound of the gun ain't going to hurt it. Yeah. And a lot of times horses will go crazy. So you got to train them. Gun at a distance and slower and slower, closer. Same thing with this is you get them comfortable being further apart, and then move them closer together. And then as they get comfortable, they it's not going to hurt me. As long as there's no new element, they just run past each other and it becomes fun because horses like to run. That's what they do.
That's what they're built for. And you got to get them used to there's also two guys on their backs with a big stick.
Yes. The stick in front of them could freak them out. They got to get used to the idea of that as well. I mean, it's a long process. It's why jousters, if the fair begins in June, the jousters have been training since March and training with those horses since March. Yeah. And sometimes they've been training all year, and they get the winter fat off them come, March or April, and get them ready to go. But they have to ride them every week for that whole year. They got to get used to it.
The freelancers are the ones that do the joust in Maryland, and they're based in Tennessee, so they're probably training now. Our fair opens in July, so they're probably doing their practicing now.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
And then a little bit I'll tell you about me is I've always wanted to be a stuntman, and I've done some stuff with friends. I taught my friends how to do like a typical Western bar fight. We all wore big belt buckles and gloves, and I said, "Hit me in the belt, don't hit me in the food. Don't hit my food, hit my belt." And then you jump up, and it looks like they actually lift you off the ground with it. But I actually went to a job interview at that's the dinner show thing with the jousting in it. I forget the name of it.
Oh, Medieval Times, yeah.
Medieval Times, yeah. There's one down here near our Renaissance Festival in Baltimore, Anne Arundel County. And I almost got the job. I didn't. I wish I had. But I told the guy, look, I know how to use almost any weapon that's built by hand. I can use nunchaku. I'm a master. I can teach you how to use them in 3 weeks, and you'll be as good as Bruce Lee. Give me a handgun. I'll hit anything within 21 feet. And I didn't get it, but it was just neat seeing behind the scenes of the hippodrome there. And the guy said to me that, this is a very dangerous sport. We only go not even 50% speed when our joust, but are you okay with if something hits you, it's going to kill you? I'm like, hey, if it kills me and I'm loving it, Yeah, but I never got the job. Huh?
As long as it's quick.
Yeah, as long as it's quick. If I'm, like I said, I told the guy, if I'm having fun during it, I won't know that I died so quickly. That'd be the end of it. But it would be a neat job to have had. I really wish I could have gotten that job. And this was like 15 years ago. Well, I was in my 40s.
Well, you know what? You could still work as the king.
Yeah. Could work as the king, yeah.
The thing that always annoyed me about them is it's all pre-recorded. You're not really acting. You're speaking to the pre-recording. I like. I'm too much old school. I like to, when I work at a Ren fair, it's my voice. I could be on a joust field and be heard by 5,000 people, and like the union loudspeaker. But the Medieval Times, it's not historical. But it has the flavor as historical, and that's all you want. Because
Yeah.
you know, if it's going to be historical, nobody should wash.
It would smell
nobody
like
should have
hell.
no teeth. You
Yeah,
know, really. So you don't really want historical. You want the flavor of the story.
yeah.
Um,
You want the look without the smells.
yeah, pretty much. Although if there's horses involved, you're going to get the smells anyway. Just the way it is. If you don't like that, if you can't live with that smell, you can't work a Ren Fair.
It's funny that historically speaking, people don't understand certain things like earrings. Earrings, they get mad when men wear earrings. So back in way back, women didn't wear earrings. Men wore them as a sign of station.
Yeah.
Perfume and cologne. People think, oh, this is to make you smell good. No, there's a reason why it's called toilet water is because in the Versailles Palace, they didn't have plumbing. So when they had parties, what did they do? They peed and pooped in the stairwell.
Yeah.
And on the outside of the stairwell was little tables with toilet water, so you could come out and spray it on you, so you didn't smell like poo and pee.
Yeah.
And people think, oh, that's glamorous. Not really.
I always tell people, they say, would you wish you lived back then? I said, well, I'll tell you what, not before 1893.
Right.
What do you mean 1893? That's when toilet paper was invented.
Yes, and there's plumbing and other good things like that.
Know, I mean, I wouldn't mind being in Crete. You know, they had indoor running water.
Yeah.
But yeah, we take a lot of things for granted because we've had the benefit of generations of people making stuff for us. But I'll tell you, we have a blackout. Two days into a blackout, people are suddenly discovering how far we have come.
This is what the medieval times smells like.
Well, I'll tell you, man, come the zombie apocalypse, 3 days tops, most people are dead. Because most people, that's it, they're done. Because most of them will just screw up, fall down the stairs, and kill themselves. The zombies
and then become a zombie themselves, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: who is it who do you know at the Maryland Renaissance Festival? I'm curious to know.
Ruta Douglas Smith, who is I don't know what character she's playing. She's usually playing royalty, but she's a phenomenal stage fighter. And some of the jobbed-in groups that go there. Snot and Puke used to work there.
Yeah, I've seen them.
You know, and a lot of guys work the circuit and do them. I haven't been there. God, I think it's been 15 years since I've been there, but I'm on Facebook with Ruta.
So you probably didn't get to see the Scottish Rogues.
I remember them vaguely. There used to be the Walking Hangman too.
They might have been, but I saw them when they were the Scottish Rogues, and I think they haven't been there in a few years. But they're like a grade 1 or grade A pipe and drum band. It's got bagpipes and drums, and amazing fellows. I've talked to them many times. They're really good, and they got some really good stage, not stage, but what do they call street acts. They have these girls that walk on the stilts that are like 9 feet up in the air. And I'm like, wow, I wish I could do that, but I'm afraid of heights. But the sad thing is, one year, and the thing about this fair is you're not allowed to wear weaponry, which kind of sucks. And the reason is because a couple of rednecks bought some swords from one of the vendors one day and had a fight in the street and hurt some people. So no weapons, not even peace-type weapons like they do in Pennsylvania. But a couple of years, 5 years, maybe 6 years ago, these two idiot girls went into the Dragon Inn, which is the best bar there, and they were doing like a fire act, and it was unsolicited, and they weren't licensed. They weren't even. I don't think the fair knew they were there. And I saw them. I'm like, these girls are going to hurt somebody. So I left where they were, and I went to the back of the room. That very next Sunday, they lit an old man and his granddaughter on fire, and they got arrested and banned from the fair. It was terrible. I'm glad I missed that part.
See, one of the things most of the fairs that I've worked up in the Northeast, the performers, even if they're a jobbed-in act, they'll have some identifying thing they wear.
Yeah, they have ribbons at our fair.
A ribbon or a pin, or and in the New York Fair, the sheriff department has off-duty and sometimes on-duty sheriff deputies in uniform walking, but there's also security dressed in period clothes, just wandering around as sort of the surreptitious guys.
Yeah.
Because we even back in the 80s, we had guys pulling knives or guys harassing the women because once they see you in in a barmaid's gown, they figure, oh, you're a slut. I can do what I want.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm an actress, darling. Get off me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, people lose that line.
Yeah.
We've had people when we're doing a sword fight walk literally into the middle of a sword fight because in their mind it can't possibly be real.
Yeah.
I've got 3 pounds of steel in my hand.
Even if it's not sharp, it's going to hurt you.
Oh yeah, no, it'll rearrange.
I've got several of those too. I've got a rapier that weighs at least 3 pounds, and it's not sharp. You walk in front of it, and I hit you with it, it's going to knock you out. Or
you always have to have a couple of performers acting as security,
perimeter guard. Yeah.
Fight. So, but I said, was it P.T. Barnum said no one ever lost money underestimating the intelligence of the American public.
Yeah.
So marks are born every minute. There's for every 5 people who come and have a great time, there's going to be one jerk who would ruin it for others if he were not controlled.
Yeah.
Most people are just going to have a nice time with their boyfriend or their, they want to go see some bar wenches or guys in tights. I know for the Ren Fair, New York, they used to get actors to come up by saying, look, the women to come up and say, look, it's going to be 250 performers, right? Half of those are going to be guys. Half of those are going to be wearing tights. And half of those are going to be straight. All the girls would sign up.
We've got a pretty good fair, I think. And then one of my favorite places there is the White Horse Saloon. And the bartenders are all girls, and they all wear the push-up corsets.
Yeah.
And they all take lipstick or some kind of body paint and paint eyeballs right on top of them.
Yeah.
So that when they say, hey, the eyes are up here, you're not in any kind of trouble because the eyes are there for you to go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many drunks sit there just staring at these poor girls in their cleavages.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's part of the entertainment experience. As long as they stay on that side of the emotional line, it's funny because the new generation, it's all Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say we get guys that come there with Stormtrooper on the top and Scottish kilt on the bottom. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I have friends in the 51, the 501 rather 501
501.
Yeah. But yeah, and the thing is, it's all fantasy. It's the same as it's the King Arthur story anyway. Yeah. So it's all awesome. What's really funny is there's always a bunch of people who go to the fair dressed in Star Trek clothes.
Yeah,
right? And they'll be doing like
the next one. Oh, you'll love this. There's just 2 guys. They're pretty tall. They're at least 6 feet, and they do the Maryland Renaissance Festival and the Shore Leave in Baltimore, which is a Star Trek convention.
Yep.
And they go as Klingons the first day, like Saturday they were Klingons. Sunday they're Klingons, and one guy's got a fairy tutu on, and the other guy's got a kilt, but he's Klingon up here and kilt below, and the other guy's Klingon up here and tutu dancer below. Yeah. It's so funny.
Well, I know that one guy when they were walking around in the Star Trek uniforms, one of the fair guys came up to him and did this and showed that they had the Star Trek insignia and said, "You fool! You're destroying the Prime Directive. We're supposed to be undercover."
I love doing that kind of stuff too. I have a Star Trek costume that my buddy made. He was friends with Bill Thies, who did the costumes for the original show, so he knows how to make the correct costume. So I've got all 3 colors: blue, red, and green and yellow. Actually, the shirt was originally green for Captain Kirk, but shows yellow in the movies, TV show. So I'm at the Baltimore Shore Leave convention, and I walked by a bunch of stormtroopers, and I had a phaser that worked. So I killed the stormtroopers as I walked by. And the one stormtrooper, they had like those little mics to go, "Oh, look, sir, he's brandishing a weapon." So I looked back at him and said, "Hey, at least I'm in the right universe, the right galaxy. You guys are in the wrong time and the wrong galaxy.
Well,
see you later."
Not only that, you don't have to fear them. Stormtroopers can't hit anything.
I know, yeah. They can't.
Although, if you're wearing a red shirt and they fire at you, you'll trip and kill yourself. So,
I was in a command uniform, so I was okay. I was good on that one. But the funny thing is also is that not only can they not hit anything with their weapons, they're wearing this super great, space armor that they die with one hit. One hit and they're gone. What's the point of having the armor if you doesn't?
I have yet to figure that out on any of them. It's
one hit wonders.
Only the Mandalorian armor seems to actually stop anything.
Yeah.
But
it's almost like it looks pretty close to what the Stormtroopers are wearing, except for it's just a different color. And it's one shot, the Stormtrooper's dead. 15 shots, and Mandalorian's still walking around. He doesn't even have a mark on his armor.
Yep. Well, he's got unobtainium, you know.
You're right. Yeah, that's true too. So those are good times. Absolutely good times. Have you noticed, and I haven't been to New York, I've only been to Maryland and Pennsylvania's fairs. The fair food is fantastic. I don't know how it is up in New York, but the food there is really, really good. It's better than McDonald's. It's better. It's as good as any regular sit-down restaurant, except you're outside.
The Maryland Fair, I remember having good food. The New York Fair, the last time I was there, it was, of course, it's always a little too high priced. You know, having not been a from the public, I didn't have to pay the full price on it. But like the chicken and because it's cooked on a grill outdoors, always tastes great, and the French fries are awesome. So yeah, and the thing is, part of it is I think you're tasting the ambiance. Yeah. It may be the same kind of chicken you would get in some other restaurant, but somehow it tastes better because you're there.
Yeah.
You know, and what's great is that people can go again now. You know, we're finally, finally able to get out. I mean, all my friends who are excited, the New Jersey Fair is going to start in a couple weeks, and they're like, oh, finally we can get out there again.
Yeah. This actually might help Jeff a little bit. So the way the Ren Fair works on the East Coast is the colder climes go first. So it's like New York, and then New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and then it gets down to Florida and Georgia when it gets more towards fall because it's so hot there during the summer. Oh yeah,
no, that's where a lot of the actors and a lot of the performing acts will do the circuit.
Right.
Yeah. In Massachusetts and Chicago or like Pittsburgh, and then just move their way down the coast and across to California and Florida. So because the New Orleans Fair is a really good fair.
Yeah, I haven't been to that one. I would like to if I had the money, I would love to just do the circuit as not a performer, but just go to every fair along the way.
There are people who do that. I mean,
yeah, they're like deadheads. They follow the band all the way around.
Yeah, and some of them will like follow the different performers like James Alexander and some of the others who do the fair. Do you know that Penn and Teller started out doing Renaissance fairs?
Did they really? No, I didn't know that.
Photographs of them in their period clothes.
Wow.
When Penn had the long hair.
Yeah.
And Teller had like an Art Garfunkel hair.
Yeah, he had the Angela Davis fro. Yeah,
and they started out doing Ren fairs, and they did some of the science fiction conventions. Same thing with the Flying Karamazov brothers.
Yeah,
it was really kind of like the modern vaudeville for a lot of performers. Yeah. A lot of guys get started there.
That's a good analogy. It's exactly that. I mean, vaudeville was the career for so many people. Abbott and Costello, the Three Stooges. Who else?
All of them. I mean, pretty much all of them.
Yeah. What's the guy with the cane? Chaplin.
Yeah, Chaplin. And, George Burns, Jack. Yeah. All of them. Yeah. No, it really is. And the thing is, it's journeyman work. You come in, you put in a full day, and then you got to repeat it, and then you got to repeat it, and it teaches you a work ethic. It teaches it teaches you how to deal with the public. That's why I always recommend acting students do it, because it really does. You start to understand interaction with the public.
You have to go off the cuff. You won't be able to go by the script on that necessarily.
Yeah. So, and even the ones who are doing Shakespearean plays there, they understand the difference between performing Shakespeare in a building and performing Shakespeare on a stage outdoors. You suddenly understand the text better because it was written, the way they speak and the declamatory nature of it really works better outdoors than indoors.
It was written for an outdoor theater, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why they say everything 3 times, so in case people missed it.
And I got to ask you this because you're a stuntman, and I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good with history of movie and film and stunt people. Who's your favorite stunt person?
It's a toss-up between Dave Sharp and Jock Mahoney.
Really, I would have guessed you would have gone for Yakima Canutt. But just about every stunt
was the father of it all.
Yeah,
but I really the reason I became a stuntman was when I was 14. I saw chapter 2 of The Adventures of Captain Marvel. It was a serial. And,
I have it.
Well, I saw chapter 2 on a 16 millimeter print at a comic convention. And I had never seen a human being move that way. And I started reading everything I could about stuntmen, and Dave Sharp is the guy who did all the doubling in that. And That was my gateway. That led me into wanting to do stunts. I taught myself how to jump off garage roofs and how to fall down stairs by reading articles on it and then looking at them frame by frame on a moviola, on an old Super 8 movie to see how the bodies move.
Yeah.
And Jock Mahoney, if you remember that the end of The Adventures of Don Juan with Errol Flynn, there's that great leap off the staircase.
Yes.
That's Mahoney. No other stuntman in Hollywood would do it because it was a 20-foot jump onto, concrete, basically.
Yeah.
And
that's Mahoney, the guy you studied under, right?
No, I studied under Patty Creen, who was Flynn's last stunt double. He was his stunt double for Against All Flags, Master of Ballantrae, and Cross Swords that he did in Italy. And he would have doubled him. He was on set, but they didn't actually do anything for the William Tell. It was unproduced. But Jock Mahoney, when I played Tarzan twice, but his prime career was in the 50s. But he doubled Randolph Scott and a bunch of other guys and Flynn early on. And Yakima Canute invented modern stunting. Him and a guy named Joe Bonomo invented almost everything they still do today is based on innovations he came up with.
Yeah, I was going to say that almost every stunt you see today, Yakima Canute did it way back then. One of his most famous stunts was he jumps off the stagecoach, goes across to the top of the 8-horse team, goes under the horses, and then back up the back of the stagecoach. They did that in Indiana Jones in the first one, where he goes under the train, under the army truck, and then comes up. But what I thought you just mentioned was amazing. How you used the moviola to learn how to do stuff for the stunts. That's how I taught myself how to use nunchaku. Is I had 3 or 4 books. Fumio Demura, who did the doubling for Mr. Miyagi. Yeah, I read his books. And then I would take Bruce Lee movies and I'd go frame. At first, we had a Betamax and we didn't have the frame by frame. So I had to wait till we got the new Betamax where we could do frame by frame and I could see what was happening. I stole almost every move Bruce Lee did. And I'm sorry the man's dead, but if he were alive today, I'd have to say I would be better than him still anyway.
Well, the thing is that's how you learn is by watching and doing.
Yeah.
And then I got instruction and I studied with people, but initially it was reading every article I could and watching everything I could. And Yakima Canute is the man who invented movie punches.
Yeah.
He invented the concept of the pass punch that, goes past the person's face.
Yeah. The camera's just here, but it looks like it connects, but you're missing him by a good inch.
Well, because the camera lens has a much shallower depth of field than the human eye.
Focal length, yeah.
And so once because before that, they used to really hit each other.
Yeah.
And once they developed that, then everything else comes from that. And all stage combat comes from that. Yeah. And but like I said, Dave Sharp, he's in Spy Smasher. He's doing all the doubling. He's in Captain Marvel. He worked. He's actually in some Star Trek episodes. In some of the episodes with the sword fights. But he's in everything in the 40s, 50s, and early 60s. He worked up until I think the late 60s, early 70s. But he was Republic stunt guy, and Mahoney was just amazing. He did Range Rider, and the stuff he did in that. The thing with Yakima Canute, he's the only man who's ever done the fall under the horses, get up, and not been hurt. When they copied it for The Legend of the Lone Ranger, even though the stuntman who was doing it spent 2 days with Canute learning how to do it and everything, he still got hurt. Yeah. He still got messed up. So Canute's the only one who's ever done it and not been hurt. Here's the thing. He invented that because he was working on a silent movie and the actor was supposed to leap, get on the horses, and stop the horses. And that was going to be the end of the movie. Well, he leaps, get on the horses, and he fell underneath, and the horses trampled him.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah.
And they had no way to end the movie. So Canute literally designed that stunt so they could do a long shot of him getting up and stopping the coach so they could end the film. And he's the only one who's ever done it. And then he did it in Stagecoach, which is not the first movie he did in it, but it's the first big movie.
Right.
And then he did it in a couple of other films. But he would do it in the morning and then go do something else.
Yeah.
Whereas, like for Indiana Jones, it took them like 3 weeks to shoot the sequence of him going under the truck.
Yeah, and the usual thing about that is that not only did they have to lift the truck, and it wasn't enough, they had to dig a trench.
Yeah,
a good 2 foot deep trench. If you look really close, you can see there's a trench he's inside of the stuntman, and the stuntman that doubled for Harrison. He doesn't have to hide his face. He looked almost dead like him.
Yes.
In those scenes.
Well, you heard that Harrison Ford had a great he had a great quote. He said, I've learned that don't do stunts the first week, they can replace you. Don't do stunts the last week, they can edit around you. You can say yes to stunts in between because I'll take care of you.
My favorite thing from that when there's the behind the scenes thing where they're either they just filmed the under the car scene or they're about to. They have to find a way to make his hat stay on. So he takes no one knows this, but he takes an empty staple gun. Everyone thinks he stapled the damn hat to his head. He didn't. It was a joke for the camera.
Yeah. Well, what they used to,
movie glue or makeup glue to keep that hat on there.
And in the old serials, what they used to do is they would take surgical tubing and they would tie it and they'd put it inside the hat band and then pull the hat down.
Yeah.
And the surgical tubing would stick it to their head pretty much.
Like an elastic band, yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because John Wayne said at one point when Canute was doubling somebody and the actor said, I wear my hair like this. And Canute went, sure, no problem. And as he gets ready to do the stunt, Canute does this and pulls it down and then does the stunt. And then he gets up and the guy says, that's not how I wear my hat. He says, yeah, but that's how I wear mine so it doesn't come off and show that it's me.
Yeah. I would have loved to have met him. He sounds like a really neat dude.
Yeah, I got to meet Hal Needham, and that was really cool.
I've heard of him. I know him. Yeah,
he's Smokey the Bandit and all those pictures. And
yeah.
And
isn't the movie Hooper about him?
Actually, the movie Hooper is about Jock Mahoney.
Oh, okay. Well, you're okay. Perfect.
Jock Mahoney was Sally Field's stepfather, who was this like stunt legend.
Yeah.
At that point, he was too sick to do it, and they needed a name to play it. So they got Brian Keith, who was a former Marine.
Yeah.
But he plays Jocko, and he was playing Jock Mahoney.
Okay, that makes sense now. Yeah.
And
Brian Keith, he's David Keith's son from the Family Affair.
No, David Keith is the other way around. Brian Keith was in the Family Affair.
Okay,
he was the dad. He was also in was it McCallum and something? He was like a judge. But he played bad guys all through the 50s and early 60s.
Yeah, until he got Family Affair and he was the family guy.
Yeah. Then he was the good guy. But up till then, he played tough guys, and he actually played Mike Hammer in a TV pilot. And he was actually a really good Mike Hammer.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
He really was a tough guy. And a good actor too.
Hey! I just want to say I found your Weird West. You couldn't hide it for long. The Hound of O'Rourke, Supernatural West.
Yep. That's one of them. That's one of my stories. Yeah. Oh, I got a bunch of those.
Okay, do you? Okay, cool. I was just wondering. I love them. I've had Joe Orlando on about Weird West.
It's actually an Eastern Western because it takes place during the French and Indian Wars.
Okay. Cool.
And I actually have one out there somewhere, and another one of them, which is The Legend of Wyatt Ape, which is a comedy where a time space traveling cop and his chimpanzee partner have to protect the real Wyatt Earp from an assassin from a different timeline. And everything in it is accurate except for those two. So I did my research on it. And I got one coming out with Annie Oakley and Bat Masterson in New York in 1903.
Nice.
Yeah, that's called Masterson's Gamble. That's going to be out in a Mass Rider Western in, I think, the next issue or the issue after from Airship 27.
Cool. I'll have to check it out. I've had Joe Orlando on about Weird West and discussed it. And he
I love that stuff.
A comic called Six Gun, and I need to read it. I have them all, like these big phone books of this comic called Six Gun. That's a Weird West. He recommended it. I need to read it, but it looks really good.
Yeah, no, we were before the lockdown. I was supposed to do a Western, and I'm hoping that they haven't lost their financing because I've yet to do a full scale Western. I mean, I did a trailer for this where I got to be the evil gunman. Of course, I'm the bad guy. But it was so cool getting to walk down the street and do the 6-gun draw. I'm a kid from Brooklyn, and for me to get to do Western, I grew up on them. I love Westerns. So,
Me too.
I've done a couple of shorts, but this would have been a full-fledged feature. So I'm still hoping they get their financing on it. So we'll see.
We got about 7 minutes, so definitely. I'm going to check out some of your Weird West, and I hope you get the Western gig. Let me know when that.
Well, there's also a Western story in Chronicles of the Skull Mask. It opens up with the Skull Rider of Desolation Flats.
Cool.
So
I love those Jonah Hexes by Joe R. Lansdale and Truman. He redid the comic Jonah Hex, and those are crazy. Nothing like a Western. Throw in some weird, vampires and stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Sure. I know there's a Danzig one coming, but I'm not that. That one scares me a little. Yeah, a Danzig Western. I'll watch it.
Did you ever see Gallow Walkers?
I've seen that on Amazon, but I don't know if I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it listed.
It's interesting. Wesley Snipes did it just before he went up for the tax evasion. And the director said, "We'll hold it till you get out." And it was shot in Zambia. So it has the feel of kind of an Italian Western, because it's desolate sand. But the premise is basically it's a Western zombie movie, but they're a very unique kind of zombie. And it's not a great movie, but it's a really good movie. It's fun. And Snipes is awesome. He's almost playing Blade in the Old West, but with 6 guns. And it's really good. It's really a fun little movie. I caught it by mistake almost one night. It was on. I went, "What the heck is this?" And I got hooked. It's not great, but it's good. It's kind of fun.
Sometimes those are the best ones for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah,
for sure. I'll definitely have to check it out. I know I've heard of it, but I don't think I ever watched it. But I've eyeballed it for sure. Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Blade. Those are great. I love Blade.
I hear they're rebooting it.
Yeah, although they're talking that that Snipes may play Blade from an alternate timeline, so he still would be Blade, but not this Blade that we're following.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but to me, he is Blade. I know the other guy is going to be really good, but he is Blade.
Doesn't he own the rights to it? I thought Snipes had bought the rights to the Blade.
He held them for a while. Then they went back to another company, and Marvel has them now.
Oh.
But he's been in talks with them. I mean, they've got, as far as I know, they have a pretty good relationship.
That's good.
Part of it is the guy who's going to do it just won an Academy Award. So if he says, "I want to play Blade," because everybody wants to play Blade, and Snipes is kind of like, "Yeah, I kind of did it, but I kind of still want to be acknowledged." So I think that would, because they're doing the whole multiverse thing, that would let them keep him to be a version of Blade, and then they can do the other Blade. So,
I'm looking forward to Loki on Disney.
Oh yeah,
good.
It looks like Tom Hiddleston is having the time of his life. I would kill to be on a show that fun. It's
gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Love it. I love Norse stuff. I do shows on it and stuff, and Viking history. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. Can't wait. That's in June, I think. I'm pretty sure.
It starts this Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not this Wednesday coming up. It starts right away because they decided to jump it. So instead of it being the Friday night thing, now it's going to be the Wednesday night thing. I started
watching MODOK, that weird cartoon on Hulu with Patton Oswalt. It's not bad. It's a little goofy, but
it's goofy, I like Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, he's great. I know where he played that little blue donkey in Happy, and of course Sci-Fi slaughtered it and canceled like they do with everything, but that was good too, with the crazy cop and the little blue whatever it was. Happy. That was nutty. Sure.
He was great. He was great as the multiple robots or whatever they were on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. every time they'd go to a new base, it'd be him. He'd be one of his brothers, and you weren't sure if he was clones or what. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I watched Invincible. That's pretty not pretty decent on Amazon. That cartoon by the guy that did Walking Dead is pretty crazy, but some gore. The gore in it will surprise you. That's for sure.
Well, I read the comics, so I wasn't really surprised. I'm not. I funny. I like the art in the comic. I'm not crazy about the story necessarily. I kind of like my heroes to be heroes, and they kind of go dark with it. It's almost a Miller thing, but it's really well done, and it's got to be one of the better page to animated film translations. They captured the art style exactly right, and the feel and the voices are right. That's kind of what I would imagine they would sound like. So I thought they did a pretty good job with it, and it's very popular. So.
I've been trying to collect some Spawn issues lately because I had them when I was younger and sold them like an idiot. So I bought a bunch of them, but those things get expensive. I bought also the trade paperback, but I know they're starting a Spawn universe comic, which I guess they're trying to like do a Marvel or DC kind of thing. Well, the Image is kind of like that, but it's called Spawn Universe, the new comic. So that should be interesting. And hopefully one year he'll actually release a movie that's good. It's been a while of talk.
He was talking about doing an animated one. I'm on Facebook feed with him. But I love Michael Jai White. He should have a higher profile than he does because he's just awesome.
Yeah, they had the HBO cartoon too. That was good, but they canceled it, of course, or something like.
Well, you got to remember, if you like it, you're going to cancel it. That's just the way it is.
But we got 1 minute left, so.
And you froze.
Thank you so much. It's been a great show. Thank you.
It's been awesome chatting with you guys. It's
been fantastic.
Ping me. I'm always on Facebook. You can, like you said, urbanswashbuckler.com. And I also have a Facebook page, Teel James Glenn, with no spaces in it. And I put up stuff for my books on there. But this is really awesome. You guys, you do some really good shows. I really enjoy them. And yeah, if I come down to Dragon Con, we'll hang out.
Or the Maryland Renaissance Festival.
Yes, if I get, it won't be this year, but we'll talk because I haven't seen Ruta in forever, and I should go down there and annoy her. So.
And I have been to Dragon Con a few times. I actually I was there one year I was dressed in Battlestar Galactica costume, and I got to escort Richard Hatch to and from his lecture, which was very cool. And I met Boomer and I met Bojay there. The very nice fellas, all of those guys, by the way.
Awesome, yeah. Like I said, people think it's a cutthroat business, and most of it isn't. Most of it is just people making a living and helping each other do it. And I've been very blessed to know a lot of really good people in theater and film. So, I'm a lucky guy, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
People used to set me on fire, and I'm still here.
Thanks so much, Teel. We've loved it. Thank you so much, and definitely we'll have you on again sometime. Thanks. We just had Don Webb on, Stephen Flowers, and it's been wild. And it's been great. It's been very great interviews lately. Thanks, we appreciate it so much. You're welcome.
You take care.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. You're listening to United Public Radio, and hope everybody has a good weekend. And we'll see you next Friday. And let's see what the winner doing. I'm looking forward to Loki for sure. I gotta check that out. Some trickster energy, some JoJo energy. All right, everybody, have a good weekend.
You want the JoJo, buddy. Don't even. JoJo, you want the JoJo, man. Just don't even, man. You know the truth.
The truth.
Oh, if y'all, we're doing a little panel here in a few minutes. We got a Gary Hasling coming on talking about the big new ICER organization, the new big UFO organization from represented with 27 countries and all kind of interesting stuff. It ought to be on in just a few minutes, actually.
ICER.
I guess that's how they spell it. I care. Maybe it's I care. Like a Care Bear kind of thing. I don't know. We're going to find out in just a few minutes. So because I go back, I met Gary through Larry Warren, so we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But anyway, I'll let y'all go. If y'all want to hang out, come by or stop by, hit me up.
I would, Joe, but I got so much shit going on here.
Well, I know you're expecting your alien child, so I'm
yeah,
we'll definitely do it sometime. I want to do the paranormal sometime, but
you're missing out, man. Them girls putting you to shame over there.
Yeah, Monday the internet died for no reason, really. So someone unplugged it from the box, which was
Oh,
crazy.
shit.
I still don't understand that.
That's
It was
about you
weird.
wanted to have your babies, man.
But it happened to other neighbors, so that's good. So it was just a stupid tech person, I hope.
And they might not have secured it right and got wiggled around, knocked it out of place. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
That
All right.
all my
The next
neighbors.
time I'll be in a hotel when we do. I'm on next Friday, right, Jeff?
No, that's I believe Wham.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be in the hotel next Friday.
The Wham. I gotta look. I forget who the guest is. I'll have to look it up. My memory's bad.
Bam, 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 wham, man.
All right. Well, my blood pressure was like 160. I mean,
Take
it was
time, yes,
high, or it
Raj.
was high earlier. So luckily, I'm gonna get her to check it and make sure it's probably low again. It was low when she last checked it, and I'm keeping an eye on it.
Oh Lordy.
All right. We'll talk at you later. If you croak, death is just wearing your true form. So remember,
Just another doorway.
Yeah.
change of
See you later,
clothes,
fellas.
baby.
Yep.
All right. We'll talk at you later.
Yeah,
Take
be
care.
good, guys.
All right. Take care. Let me see.
Mhm.